You know, covering the campaign, Biden didn't really run on many actual policies. It was kind of restore the soul of the nation. And I always I knew that was a bit hollow because I've traveled a lot and I've seen that the soul of the nation is a new Gilded Age. I mean, that's the soul of the nation. And I think a lot of people voted for him, not because they were inspired by him, but because they just wanted Trump out. But now with Biden a year in, they're seeing that soul of the nation is still a $7 25-hour minimum wage. That soul of the nation is just an insanely chaotic pandemic where basic things that would be simple for a government that doesn't think about the economy first, thinks about public health first. That soul of the nation, you have people being demanded to come back to work while sick with COVID. I mean, I could go on and on. Can you kind of talk about, I think a lot of people that voted for Biden, not for him, but to remove Trump, that awakening they're having now, I think you phrased it. They thought the awakening was Trump, but the awakening was really Biden.
Yeah, I heard Peter Hager say that. I thought it was brilliant. So this is the deal. The $7.25 an hour minimum wage is not the soul of this nation. It is a perversion of the soul of this nation. Gilded Ages, and I agree with you, we're in the second Gilded Age here, is an aberration. It is not the march of the soul of the nation. It is a dark chapter in American history. The fact that so many tens of millions of Americans live on survival, basically, and with chronic economic, social, and even biological trauma at this point in the richest country in the world is not the soul of this nation. It is what has happened when something that is soulless has so gotten hold of our economic system and our political system. And that's why it was so cynical for someone who will not stand up for the PRO Act, someone who will not cancel the college loan debt, someone who will not expand Medicare, someone who will not take a stand for environmental protection and climate mitigation the way we need to. How dare he talk about healing the soul of America? It is very cynical, and people have the right to be very resentful of that. I am as well. I'm not feeling that emotionally, but I get it. There's nothing really wrong about that. You don't use a term like soul of a nation as a PR stunt, and that's clearly what happened here.
And also, I'm seeing, because I first started paying attention to politics really in 2004, Bush, Kerry, and I'm just kind of seeing this same old record, only they're dusting it off. And that is Democrats I'm talking about. We're going to sprinkle some crumbs economically. We're going to take those crumbs and kind of market it as transformational. The infrastructure deal is the most recent example. But really, we're going to run on saving democracy. 2004 was the most important election of our lifetime. 2008, most important election of our lifetime. Each cycle, that's what you hear. And now we're seeing, not that the filibuster is not important. I don't want to minimize that it is. Voting rights, very, very important priority. But they're shifting to voting rights and non-economic things because essentially, in my view, Biden didn't fight for any of those economic things because the donors will only allow them to go so far. I wanted to ask you, basically from the start, Biden, even with the media, these new FDR articles, the Democrats and him chose to preemptively surrender on most bold things, even though they had a mandate for those things, very popular policies throughout the Build Back Better Act. What does this do? I'm not talking about the midterms, but when a party just chooses not to actually be in opposition to the Republicans, doesn't this just foster the conditions for further, empowering of the right wing?
Yes. And it has been true for a long time. You can go back to Barack Obama. Barack Obama in 2008 was given a mandate for transformational progressive change. And from the minute he got there, he basically proved that he was one of them and that he would go. If you look at Obamacare, Obamacare is an example of going as far as the insurance companies will allow you to go. And everything that you just said is true. Biden, since he has been president, has been the modern Democrat, which means that while the Republicans don't even pretend they're doing anything but serve the corporate overlords, the Democrats acknowledge the pain that that causes and do what they can to ameliorate the pain on the periphery, but still refuse to challenge the underlying forces that make all that suffering inevitable. People get it now. Mommy and daddy are both crazy. Neither one of them is going to really help the working class in America. And that has put us in a place of deep upset, and that must lead to deep inquiry. What it must not lead to is a downward spiral emotionally of cynicism, which is just an excuse for not helping, and nihilism, and dysfunctional outrage. There is such thing as moral outrage, and this is a morally outrageous moment. But moral outrage is not born of anger, it's born of love. The anger that is dysfunctional and just spewing out and people spinning out right now is self-indulgent. We must practice a lot of emotional discipline right now. And the question needs to be not just endless bitching and moaning. Once you get the situation, now our question has to be, what are we going to do about it? And we need to do it quickly.
And I'd like to ask you, there's kind of the left has really fractured. There's now this mindset to hell with electoral politics. We've knocked on doors, we've volunteered, we rode the Bernie wave twice. Maybe some people supported you in 2020, and it's all corrupt. It's all for naught. You referenced nihilism, so let's call it that. So people are saying we're going to do more direct action, whatnot. I personally think it doesn't need to be either or. You don't want to abandon, there have been elected leaders that have fostered change in our lifetime, not recently, but there has been. I wanted to ask you, what do you say to people who have really jumped onto that? And I understand their frustration, but what do you say to people who are just done with electoral politics? They want to go more the outside electoral politics,
You know what I say?
boycott.
You know what I say? Put down your violin. Only a really entitled, privileged generation says, we tried for 5 years and it didn't work. We tried for 10 years and it didn't work. Excuse me, how long do you think the abolitionists tried? What do you think they went through? What do you think the women's suffragettes went through? What do you think the civil rights movement went through? People say, I'm traumatized by the whole thing. Do you think the people who walked across the bridge at Selma were not traumatized? Do you think the women who were women suffragettes were thrown in prison, and because the prison conditions were so terrible, they went on a hunger strike, and the response of the prison officials was to send men into their cells and force these metal contraptions on their necks to force feed them? You think they weren't anxious and traumatized? Enough with this preciousness. We've tried. We're not even trying it. I mean, look at other countries and what pro-democracy people risk. Can we be real here? We've got to stop coddling this in ourselves. Yes, this takes struggle. This takes maturity. Okay. You don't just think, no, I didn't, but I want to. No, excuse me. Just like I said, let's put down the violin now. And I know it's disappointing, but we've got a democracy to save here. This is not just about you, is how I feel. This is about your standing in honor of your ancestors, saving democracy, because no matter what you think about this country, this world will not be better off if this country goes down. This is about our planet. This is about saving democracy. This is about course-correcting America. And this is about serving our descendants and generations after us. This is not a time to indulge your disappointment. This is about bigger than you. This is how I feel towards that person. Now, the anti-electoralism thing serves the opponent. People say influence the conversation. The conversation's been influenced. Direct action, and I agree with you, Jordan, it's both and. It's inside and outside. But no matter what we do outside, if you don't start changing the people who are making these policies, it's these policies that are so destructive. We must change who's making them. Mm-hmm. And so, like you said, it's inside, outside. And I think the anti-electoralism conversation is both dangerous and perilous. No, and naive.